Okay guys, so today I'm going to be talking about how to quickly get to 700 gear score nice and easily in the new world expansion. So first and foremost, in order to get to the new level cap of 65 and actually access 700 gear score, you will of course have to purchase the expansion for the game. So that's an upfront disclaimer there. Now the first thing that you want to do is jump into the main story quest of the new area plus the side missions. This will easily get you up to around a 650 gear score, if not higher. Now, if we have a look at the map, I haven't even done all of the side missions in this new area of the Elysian Wilds yet. There's still quite a few to do. As well as this, not to mention, if you haven't already done them, there is a brand new set of quests over in Eden's Grove here, where they have basically updated the settlement, so there's a quest line to follow there. Basically, you should get to level 65 fairly quickly, and once you do the main story quest in the Elysian Wilds, it will give you drops of around 640 to 650 gear score, so getting up to this is pretty self-explanatory. Now, the next thing that I would recommend to do after this is set up yourself on the brand new expedition or any of the other end game expeditions that you actually enjoy doing. The reason I would say do the new one is of course because right now at the time of recording this is on Mutation as well, so you can get used to it, and of course probably many of us would like to try out the new content. So going into the Savage Divides, all you need to be is level 65 in order to be able to do this. As you can see here, the regular one, level 65 here, so you can jump into that one pretty much as soon as you finish the main story quest, or pretty much finish it. You'll be at level 65 and you can jump in there. Now this one is not supposed to drop 700 gear score items, but it does at the moment. Again, at the time of recording this video, we are only a couple of days after the launch of the expansion, so this may change in the future, and if it does cap out, it will be capped at 685, so it is still a very good step to get you in between the next set of gear. But as I say, currently, if you are watching this as it goes up, or in the first couple of days, then you can get some 700 drops from the regular Savage Divide as well, so make sure you make the most of that. Now, after this point, what I would recommend doing is going on to M1s. The new system for mutations is M1, 2, and 3, so Intermediate, Hard, and Elite. Now, the first one only requires 650 gear score and really is not that difficult, so you should be able to do this pretty easily as soon as you get to that 650 gear score mark. Now again, like I said, you might even be able to do this straight after the main story quest if you've incorporated a few side quests as well and got some lucky drops on your way around. At that point as well, if they do patch the regular expeditions dropping 700 gear score, just run M1s because these will of course drop 700 gear score. Mutations will always drop that max gear score, so they will give you some boosts. The advantage of doing this over the regular one is that the floor for the ceiling gear score, so the lowest end of the gear score drops, is actually raised as you go up the mutations. So obviously starting off with mutation 1, that will be raised up from the regular one, so you have a much higher chance compared to regular of getting that higher end 690 to 700 gear score drops. Now the next thing that I would look at here is getting some artifacts. So if you have done the main story quest and completed it, spoiler, look away now if not and skip the next sort of 10-15 seconds. But these are the reward that you get from completing the main story quest, which are the attuned leather pants, and of course artifacts come with a 700 gear score. Now I've also gone out and farmed the Odo. This piece dropped from a boss over here in the Isle of Zervan, and it was somewhere just up on one of the top islands there. They're pretty easy to farm. There's a lot of big groups going for them at the moment, so you should be able to get some friends and get onto these. Again, this is another 700 gear score piece. Now, there is some jewelry that you're able to get, but currently they're from mutations which are not on the rotation, or from getting level 100 in the season pass, which currently isn't working quite correctly either. So weapon and armor would be my suggestion in terms of artifacts. Obviously, that does then enable you to get some 700 pieces, which really does boost your gear score, particularly early on, which should get you at least to that M2 threshold of 675. Now, one thing that I would say with the artifacts as well in terms of progression, certainly work on the quests as soon as you can. As you can see here, my Odo, which is the brand new flail artifact, only has 2 perks currently. Obviously, it comes with Odo's Punishment, which is one of the uniques. It also has Refreshing Move on here, but you can see that I need to go and defeat Guardian of Sekor's Light at Sekor Ori, and this one will give me another perk. And then another quest there is to, when equipped, defeat Crowned Lotus enemies in the Elysian Wilds. I've done about half of these right now. Need to go ahead and finish that one. And then finally, you'll need to upgrade the item at a Gypsum Kiln. But in order to do that, you are going to need some weapon matrices or armor matrices, depending on what you are doing, and those can be quite costly, or at least the materials to craft them are in quite high contention at the moment. So bear that in mind. That might take you a little while to complete, but it is easily doable if you're happy to farm it and obviously get your levels up to craft them. Now, speaking of crafting, if you do want to get your crafting skills up to the new levels, obviously everything has been increased to 250. You are actually able to craft some of the 690 or 700 gear score items. So if we go ahead and scroll down here on weaponsmithing, as you can see in the top right, mine is actually now at level 205, which means that I have access to the brand new tier of things, which is mithril. Now, these will require mithril ingots, but as you can see, that will only give it a 615 gear score. So what I'm going to do here is put in the brand new prismatic planks, the brand new prismatic leather, and the brand new prismatic ingots. All of those added together will give me a gear score of 645. If I want to get this up to 700, of course, I'm going to need my trophies, which I do currently have equipped, but you're also going to need the full set of armor and jewelry. You're going to need your food buffs on, etc., with all of these brand new endgame materials, and then you are going to be able to actually craft 700 gear score. Now, bear in mind as well, if you do want to craft 700 gear score and pick out all of the perks on it so that you can craft essentially a BIS item, you will need to use one of these prismatic scarabs. Now, I currently haven't crafted any of these, but what you will need to do is get to level 250 in stone cutting, and then you will be able to combine 10 golden scarabs, 3 prismatic blocks, 500 azoth, and 50 pure solvent, and then you'll be able to make one of these. Now, as you can see on my server right now, they're sitting at around 10,000, but if you've got the crafting level to be able to make a piece with this, you can essentially create a 700 gear score BIS piece. The reason that I have left this lower down on the list than some of the better, more consistent ways is because currently, at the time of recording this video, all of the materials in the new zone are very, very contested, and a lot of the prices, so for example, the prismatic blocks here, are very, very high as well. So it is going to cost you quite a lot to make, or it's going to take you quite a while to gather these materials. So do bear that in mind, but it is a really good way to get yourself up there, especially 690 to 700 very, very easily if you already have the gear sets and the trophies ready to go. Now, another thing to look at here then is open world content. So things like chest runs or elite zones in general. Now, the highest level areas such as the Elysian Wilds, we've got Brimstone Sands, you've got Shattered Mountains, all of those areas, you're going to get normal mobs dropping you up to 690 gear score, and then from the named enemies and the chests in these elite zones, you are going to get yourself up to 700 gear score. These, again, are very, very frequent in chat, so if you do see yourself some Elysian Wilds, chest runs, some Shattered Mountains, or some Brimstone Sands ones, all of those areas are going to be really, really good for getting yourself that 690 to 700 gear score drop, because as well as the gear score drops and general gear coming from these chests and from these named enemies that are going to be at 700 gear score, also, the loot from these runs is highly, highly desirable, so it should be fairly easy for you to join a big group at around 640 to 650 gear score after the main story quest to get yourself some nice boosts in some stuff there, and potentially even get some of those rare drops as well, which is really, really nice. Another thing you can do as well is corrupted portal caches. These ones can also drop up to 700 gear score, so again, that's going to be in the Elysian Wilds, it's going to be in Brimstone Sands and Shattered Mountains. Often Shattered Mountains are having regular runs, and as well with Brimstone. Now, these do drop up to 700 gear score, like I said, but they do have a larger pool of potential gear score, so it may be less consistent than some of the other methods, but it is still an option. Again, OPR and Arenas, these are going to be the same thing. If you head over to the modes tab, either of these are going to be really, really good if you enjoy PvP, because these caches, again, can drop up to 700 gear score. Again, however, they do have a larger pool of potential gear score, so it is going to be less consistent than things like your M1s or M2s, which we're going to get onto in a moment. Now, the other PvP route that is pretty good is, of course, the Influence Races. So if you go onto your map here and click on the Conflicts tab, you can actually see attackers are going to be the enemy factions versus the Marauders here. This is going to be an Ebonscale Reach at 8 PM till 8:45 PM CEST for me at the day of recording this video. Now, if you go on here, you'll also see things like the wars, but generally there is 2, 3, maybe even 4 of these influence races per day, so just keep an eye out for when they're going on. Anybody can partake. You don't have to even be a part of a company, you just have to be part of a faction. You flag up, you go and take these influence points. So if we have a look on the map, for example, in Everfall, there is a watchtower just around here, then there is another one just down here. East Everfor Watchtower, and then there is another one over here, which is the Everfor Watchtower there. These will all start up as locations where each of the factions can go and fight over them. Now, these will drop you a ton of PvP XP and salts, so it's a really, really good way to level up your PvP track as well, which, if you aren't already aware, there is some artifacts which drop from there, so this is really nice. And also the caches from this can, of course, drop you up to 700 gear score as well, so it's kind of a 2-in-1 with this, leveling the PvP track and getting some potential drops that are going to be higher up on that gear score end. Now, at this point, when we are around the 675 gear score, I would, of course, recommend going on to M2 expeditions. Now, these are a fair jump up from the M1 expeditions now, since there is a reduction to just the 3 difficulty settings. So, especially when you are just on the 675 gear score, just hitting that minimum requirement to get in, do expect these to be fairly difficult, especially with random groups, and especially on the new Savage Divide expedition, because people don't know the tactics necessarily. But if you can get a good group, or you can get a group of friends to do this with you, or company members, whatever, it actually can be a great way to get some more loot, especially that higher level stuff, because essentially as you go up these expedition mutation levels, you're going to have a higher floor level of loot. So that does mean that the minimum gear score of items that will be dropped will be higher, and considerably higher than the M1s. So essentially you have more chance of getting those 700 or at least the 695 plus pieces, which will then, of course, push you down here onto this 695 gear score. Now, you can see on this character, I'm currently 693 gear score, so I need to do a couple more runs on this M2 or the M1 to try and get some drops, get myself up there a little bit more, and then, of course, you can jump into the M3. Now, these are really, really important, because although they are going to be very, very difficult, even if you aren't able to complete it within the time or with much score at all, they are still going to be worth running to get yourself up to that 700 set, because while they are a lot larger of a difficulty jump from M2 than the previous incremental system that we had, these can only drop 695 to 700 gear score items, so you have a much higher chance to get those last few pieces all the way up to 700, and then work on replacing some of your less good gear into best in slot drops, or at least just decent drops for expedition farming, so that you can then go ahead and repeat a lot of M3s per week. Now, it's also worth noting for anyone that hasn't read the changes, you can do up to 35 mutations per week as well, so this is really important, because it means you've got a lot more chance to get some of this gear. And of course, you don't have to do the new expedition. You can go on, currently at the time of recording this on my server, it is Imperium Forge that is on with this one, so you can of course go into M3 Imperium Forge if you want to as well, once you've got 695, if you are looking to potentially get through this a little bit smoother with an expedition people have a little bit more experience in. Now, it is worth noting as well that named items can be upgraded to 700 gear score and can have the final perk changed with the new matrices crafting elements. However, like I mentioned before in the video, it is so close after the launch right now when I'm recording this that things are still quite expensive or contested in terms of resources, so it is a little bit tricky to get hands-on with these matrices right now. However, this is a really, really good system, and a lot of these named items may even be best in slot for some builds, so certainly have a look into them, look what those perks are going to be or what you can change them to be, and have a look into those for your progression as well, because they are going to certainly help you get up there to that 700 gear score, and they're going to be really useful components in terms of your gear. So hopefully this video has given you some ideas, tips and tricks on how you can get yourself up to that brand new maximum gear score of 700 nice and quickly, nice and easily. It is quite straightforward, so hopefully this lays it out nicely in what order you can do things in order to be able to get there. If it has helped you out, please do leave me a like on the video down below. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. We're going to have tons more expansion content coming here very, very soon, so don't miss out on that one. And other than that, thank you very much for watching, and I'll catch you guys again very, very shortly on a brand new video. So take care and peace.